Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to, Hacktoberfest happy hour. Too many H's in there, but it's a nice alliteration. I like alliterations. Yes, Hacktoberfest is in full swing. So throughout the month of October, we're going to do a couple of these Hacktoberfest happy hours where we want to shed some light on some cool open source projects that are happening, and some of them, might be adjacent to some of the stuff at Supabase or Postgres or anything like that. And then also we want to help us. So basically help you get started contributing to Supabase. And so we'll be inviting some folks to talk about their projects, or maybe some of you. I think maybe we post. We can do that later. Maybe post a tweet to see if anyone wants to get started contributing to Supabase, and then we can invite them to join. And today we have a nice full house. So we have some great guests here. So we have Isaiah, who is, I think we'll talk about the story in a little bit. But maybe Isaiah, if you want to introduce yourself.
So my name is Isaiah. I was originally an open source contributor. Sorry to spoil the story, but I was originally an open source contributor and then got hired as an intern and part of the front end team now, currently.
Yes. I mean, I think that's the incredible thing about open source. It doesn't really matter, like where you are. I think Isaiah yourself are in the US, and it's probably getting late for you, but it's great for you to join us. And you start contributing, you get talking to the team, and eventually we'll find a way to get you in and never let you go. We'll see. So thanks so much for joining us. And Isaiah will talk a little bit about how he got started contributing, and maybe also help you get started contributing. And then also we have Mark Burggraf, with a lovely German last name there. He's in the US as well, though. I'm not sure how good his German is, actually. But he has been doing some really nice contributions on Postgres WASM. So experimenting with running Postgres in the browser. It's pretty mind-boggling, mind-blowing. What's the right word here? Sorry, for me, it's early in the morning. It's so we'll figure this out as we go along. But yes, he'll be showing us running Postgres in the browser and maybe some of the cool things that we can do with that. And then we have Andrew here as well. And I think, Andrew, it's an ungodly hour for you. I don't know how you're still awake, but do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Am I loud enough?
If you can go a bit louder.
Okay, I think that should do it. All right. So I'm Andrew. I'm a DevRel like Thor here at Supabase. I help out with the community as well. So on Discord, probably find me there. SilentWorks on those platforms. And glad to have Isaiah and Mark on tonight.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we're doing some Hacktoberfest happy hours throughout the month. Get folks contributing, shine a light on their open source projects. I'm Thor. You can find me kind of across the web as Thor Web Dev. The name was a bit limiting. I sometimes dabble in mobile as well. But I work with Andrew on the developer relations team, and we work on client libraries and auth helpers most recently as well, and just try to get folks, working with Supabase as efficiently as possible. All right. If you're joining in here in the stream, maybe give us a comment. Let us know what you're working on this Hacktoberfest. Maybe if you are maintaining an open source project yourself, drop those in the comments, and then we can see if others can contribute as well. Okay, great. And then now maybe let's hand over to Mark. And Mark, tell us, what is Postgres WASM? How did you even come up with the idea of running Postgres in the browser?
Well, my name's Mark Burgraff. I'm on the engineering dev team, customer success teams at Supabase. And I've been working on this project. Basically, I'd like to say it was my idea, but it was not my idea. I was on a train coming back from Portland during our last launch week, and Crunchy Data released Postgres in the browser, which was kind of mind-blowing because nobody even thought to try that, putting a server inside the browser and running it in the browser. The problem was they did not make it open source, so people couldn't build on it and do things with it. And so we thought, this opens a lot of doors for really cool things that you can do with WASM, with Postgres as in a development environment, and be really cool if there was an open source version of this. So we got together with the folks over at Snaplet, who were also looking for the same thing. They also saw the Crunchy Data post and were really interested and would like to use it as well. So we've been working together. I've been working with their team to bring this to fruition. And it's a difficult project. It's definitely a hacker's project. It's one of those things where you just hack a bunch of technologies together and bang on it until it works, which is actually the most fun project. I'll tell you, when Julian over at Snaplet and I were working on this the first couple of weekends, we worked all weekend. I mean, besides our regular work, we'd be working like Saturday night, and Julian would say, "Okay, I'm gonna break off now. I'm gonna head to bed," and then he'd come back 10 minutes later and he'd say, "Wait, I just thought of something." And so he was up late hours, all day Sunday, just because it was such a fun project to put together. So let me just kind of show what it is here. If you want to share the screen here, if you go to wasm.supabase, go to wasm.supabase.com. It's just this is a demo. And so the whole project is open source. How to build it, how to build your own Linux distribution to host Postgres, how to create an application. All of that's online at the Snaplet GitHub repo, and we'll share that maybe in the comments later. But basically, this is our version of Postgres in the browser. So if you come to this, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page here. The first time you load it up, it might take 10-15 seconds because it's loading up a snapshot of the operating system. But after that, it's like just a couple of seconds to refresh, and you have, let's see, Postgres in the browser. Select star from version. Just take a look. And this should show you that we're running Postgres 14.5 on a build root Linux system compiled with i686. So if I drop to, what's really cool is you can drop out of pSQL and you're actually running a full Linux distribution. So you can do things like, let's see, find star. There's a whole file system here. Basically, we're running Linux. Now, when people first saw this and they heard Postgres WASM, they thought a pure WASM version of Postgres, and that's not what this is. WASM, which WASM stands for web assembly. So it's assembly language basically for the browser, or not for the browser, but it can be used in the browser and be encapsulated in the browser. It's not quite to the point where you can compile Postgres, because Postgres is a pretty big application. And it uses a lot of libraries that talk directly to the hardware. So that's not quite ready yet. So what we're doing is we're running the hardware inside of the browser. So what we did, let's see, what we did, Julian and I, is we figured out that the only way that you would be able to get Postgres in the browser is to run it in a virtualization system, or something that runs a virtual operating system. And so we looked around and we found the best way to virtualize an operating system was with this product called V86. This guy named Fabian put it together. But you can basically boot Windows, Microsoft Windows in the browser. You can boot Arch Linux and a whole bunch of operating systems. And so what we're doing is we're building an operating system and encapsulating or loading Postgres into that operating system and then running it and then optimizing it so it works. The original Crunchy data version worked like this. It didn't have any networking, so you could actually get Postgres in the browser, but you couldn't access the internet. And so we've added all sorts of extensions to be able to save the state, get to the internet, things like that. Let's just do a couple of commands just so you can see what we can do here. Create table people. This is a pretty standard ID serial primary key. Name text. You'll see a slight delay the very first time you run a command, and that's because we're running a virtual operating system and it's actually loading files, Linux files, over the internet to your browser and then caching them the very first time. Insert into people. Let's see, name, values, Mark, Thor, Andrew. Oops, it's not going to work. Just do one. Select star from people. Okay, so there we go. Now, if I want to get out to the internet, I'm going to go ahead and hit quit here. I'm going to hit start. And if you see down at the bottom, it's kind of hard to see. It's connecting to the network. In order to get to the internet, this was a really, really difficult piece to do because the browser, there we go, now we're connected. The browser by default blocks TCP/IP traffic. We're actually getting out to the internet now just fine. So it blocks internet traffic because for security reasons. So you can't just create something in the browser that talks to, let's say, talks to Postgres on port 5432. If you try to talk to it, it'll block that. Browsers only allow HTTP traffic, like you can do a fetch and go out, but you can't like open up a session, and you can't, like I said, talk on any TCP/IP ports. What you can do is you can open up a WebSocket connection. And so what we're doing, let me show you a little drawing here. We're running a proxy out on the internet that listens for WebSock packets from this emulator. So this emulator, also the emulator doesn't have any hardware. It's basically emulating the entire operating system. So it has a virtual software network card, industry standard network card that creates WebSocket packets instead of regular packets. Those packets are sent up to our proxy. The proxy then relays those through switched relay. They go out to the internet. The internet sends them back, and then the proxy takes it and turns it back into WebSocket traffic and sends it back. So that's what's happening behind the scenes. That was kind of standard. It wasn't standard, but it was most of the pieces to do that were included in the V86 emulation software. What was never done before was the ability to get into this virtual machine. In other words, the first questions people asked were, how can I connect to this machine from my local machine, from my browser, or from my laptop, or even across the internet? And so we can do that now. Once you connect, we give you this port 6070, which is a unique port. And now I can say pSQL to that port. Now it's not going to let me initially, because you have to set up for security reasons, we're going to have to say alter role Postgres with password Postgres for security reasons, and set a password better than Postgres. You have to do that inside of pSQL. Alter role Postgres with password Postgres.
Mark, you're missing a G in the Postgres, Mark, in the first one.
Postgres. There we go.
Postgres.
There we go.
Hola.
Okay, let's see if let's try to connect now here. Server running locally.
You have
Oops,
two PSQLs in there.
pSQL. There we go. And now I type Postgres. There we go. So now if I say select star from people, I should get the same data that I had. So I'm actually connected to my machine through the proxy. What's cool about this now is I can give this address to Thor, who's in Singapore now across the world, and he can connect to my database locally and put stuff in it and see it, which is really hard to do. Now, in order to do that, let's go back to that Excalibur. What we're doing is we're talking to Nginx running in the WebSock proxy, and it's basically translating that port. I open up a range of ports, 6,000 through 6254. And if you look at the address that I was assigned, let's see here. The proxy gave me a private address of 10.5.6.70. So I turn that 6.70 and just arbitrarily I've said, okay, let's turn that into port 6070. And so when you hit port 6070, it goes to that private address to the 5432 Postgres address and routes it. So we're going from my laptop, when I typed that pSQL command, it's going to Nginx. Nginx is saying, I know who is on port 6070. I know the local address, so I'm going to send you to them, and then it routes it back and forth. And so that's going to open up some things that we can do in the future. We can run, Postgres REST interfaces or other interfaces inside the emulator and be able to talk to them, and that's going to be pretty cool. So that's basically what you can do now. And sorry,
Mark, the database is on your machine, right? It's in the browser, basically
Correct.
at your location. And so if I were
Yes.
to go to wasm.supabase.com now, I would have basically my own instance running in my browser, my own
Yes.
database, and then I could enable the networking, and I would basically get a different port, and that's kind of how the routing works, whether it goes
Exactly.
to your machine, my machine. Okay, nice.
Exactly. Okay, and again, yes, the Postgres server is running inside the context of my browser. So if I open up another browser tab and go to wasm.supabase.com, I have two separate database servers going, one in each of the tabs. So that's what's happening here. Just to show you the other features that we've got besides starting and stopping the network. Let me go up here. I put this little mini keyboard, and it's not really a keyboard. It's just giving you the Control-C, Control-D, the arrow keys, Control-Z, just a few control keys. The reason I did that, it's an interesting story. This actually works on an iPhone, right? So you can actually run Postgres inside a browser on your iPhone. Why? Because I can. Because my wife's in the grocery store, and I'm sitting in the car a little bored, and I want to write some SQL. So I boot it up, and I connect it to the net, and then I ping, and I realize the iPhone doesn't have a Control-C key, and I can't get out of the ping, so I have to reboot my whole little browser. And so I added this little keyboard so I can hit a Control-C or use my arrow keys to go up and down or whatever. So that's why that's there. And we could expand that later. But that was just a little fun thing I added. We can transfer files to the emulator. So let's say you have a CSV file you want to import, or you have a script that you want to run. You can hit the up arrow, and if you know the path to a file, like if you want to say etc password and you want to look at that, download that file, you can click down and it will download it. So you can upload and download things. You can take a snapshot of the entire operating system, including the database. So if I hit save, it's going to write to this file state bin. I guess I already have one, so it's state1.bin. So this state.bin file is going to probably be about 130 megs or so on your system. That's basically an entire snapshot that you can then restore at any time. So let's say you create a database, you get some data in it, make some modifications, you can save it, then come back to it later, restore it. Or you can take that file, compress it, send it over to somebody else, and they can boot it directly in their copy of WASM. So you can move databases around very, very quickly and very, very easily. You can also save to IndexedDB, which is the local database built into the browser. So that's sort of like saving and restoring state, but without having to save a file. It's just sort of built into your browser. I set up memory configurations. I found that about the smallest configuration to run Postgres was about 128 megs, and the highest you can go is up to a gig. If you go higher than a gig, I could get 2 gigs to boot, but you couldn't save state. So we go up to, you can create a VM with a gig of memory if you want. You can change your size of the text and things like that. And then here you can change your proxy. By default, we're running a proxy for testing this at proxy.wasm.supabase.com, but you can use another proxy or build your own proxy. And then if you're interested, you can actually watch this whole thing boot. If you do a full boot, you can watch the full boot process. And so when you see the full boot process, we're actually loading an ISO file like with the operating system on it, and it's going through. That's the entire full boot process from the beginning. Now you might say, what's the difference between full boot and quick boot? When you do quick boot, or if you just go to the site by default, what we're doing is I've already booted the operating system, loaded up pSQL, gotten you to this Postgres prompt, and then I saved state by hitting, save right here. Then I compressed that state file with a single command, uploaded it to the website, and instead of you having to boot that operating system and go through maybe a 20 to 30 second process, it's a lot faster to just restore the state where it is. But it's basically the same thing as saying restore from file, choosing the state.bin file and restoring it. So it's a little faster to do it that way. So this is basically it. This is what we've been working on. And to make this work, let's talk about the if you go to Supabase community Postgres WASM, or actually this is a fork of what we did at Snaplet, Snaplet/Postgres WASM. In order to make it work, there's 3 main packages. Buildroot is the first package that we have, and Buildroot is an existing open source project for building embedded Linux distributions. So initially, when Snaplet put it together, they used Debian and ran it inside of the v86 emulator, and they were able to get things to work, but it was enormous. It was a couple 100 meg file that you'd have to download in order to run, and that's just not going to work on a website like this. So we figured we're going to have to build our own Linux distribution from scratch to make it as small as possible, and that's what Buildroot's designed for. Buildroot's designed for if you are making a single board chip on a small computer or embedded systems, and you need to get a copy of Linux running with the kernel trimmed down and under a meg, because you only have like a meg of memory. You can do that kind of thing with Buildroot. And we've trimmed things down tremendously. We could trim it down a lot more if we get some experts. If you know a lot about kernels and how to take things out of the kernel without breaking things, hit us up. We want to talk to you because you can help us make this smaller. Anyway, Buildroot basically is set up. You load it in a Docker container. You can run this command called make menu config and choose what pieces you're going to put into your operating system. I build my version differently than the Snaplet people do. I put curl in there, and I put nano in there because I hate VI. I mean, I used VI back in the 1980s, literally, but it's been a long time since I used VI, and I'm just so used to using nano. So I put that in there, and I could add other tools as well that help you when you drop to the operating system. So basically, we run this. you run make on this inside of your Docker container, and it takes a long time. Even on the fastest hardware, it's like 20 or 30 minutes, a 20 or 30 minute build. But what it does is it builds a Linux distro, basically. And then we take that Linux distro, we copy it into our website, and then we run it with v86. When you run it, I'm going to show you here. Let's see. Let's go to our web branch. And that's got a fourth package called Supabase. That's the one we were just looking at. This here is Supabase. The actual regular Snaplet version of this has something called Runtime. I think it's called Runtime right here. That's their the Snaplet kind of a stripped down demo, a simpler demo. Our demo has a few more features, and that's a Supabase. So if you look at Supabase, there should be an index HTML. You can follow that, and it's got the full user interface, and then it's got some JavaScript. And then inside the JavaScript, actually, let's bring this up in a real editor here. There we go. Okay, so Supabase.
You're saying you can't have an editor in the browser?
You can. You probably can. Actually,
actually,
have editors in the
GitHub
browser.
has it. If you hit just the full stop button, it should load up VS Code in the browser.
Yeah, I'm used to this. This is where I spend all my day anyway.
Fair enough.
Okay, so just briefly, when the window loads, we're creating a configuration. Here's where we've got the default memory size and the default save file name and the default proxy URL that you saw in the interface. We load up these base options for v86, the pathware WASM. The actual WASM piece is v86 standard. It's just it's part of the package. So that's the WASM that loads the operating system. And so we're just providing the operating system. What we found for speed, the reason you can load this thing so fast is we've got this virtual file system going. So it's kind of interesting here how this works. If you boot, the first time we boot from scratch, we're setting these kernel command line parameters where we're saying in root is on a host 9p, this 9p file system, and the root file system type is 9p. Well, 9p is a type of file system that lets you put the file system out on the internet, out on a web server, and then load a virtual file system. So the base file system is loaded from this file system JSON, and then there's this file system directory. And I'll show you what that looks like. These bin files are all the files in the entire operating system. So if you took your entire Linux operating system, it flattens them, gives them a name, and then puts the entire file system in this one file, this JSON file, which is cool if you're a JavaScript developer. It's pretty easy. So every file is in this JSON file, and if I'm going to do like pretty this so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, so you've got this bin file, and then it's got its size and its attributes and its owner and all of that. So this is basically all the files in the operating system. So like I said before, the files sit out on the web. When you boot, all you do is point to the kernel is in this file system. There's a file called bz image. There it is. So this is the kernel is loaded in this file. So it loads the kernel, and then after that, everything is loaded over the internet. These files come over the internet, so they're lazy loaded. That's why we can boot really fast, and then if you need stuff, it gets cached in your browser and it gets faster. Really interesting technology, and again, we did all sorts of things to make it as fast and as small as possible, and also we're trying to get that download, that initial download as fast as possible. And one of the ways we did that, which is kind of interesting, we were talking to Fabian, the maker of the v86 product. He said that if you send this kernel parameter called page poison on, what it does is it overwrites the unused memory with the same pattern all the way through, makes it zeros or whatever, so that when you compress those state files, they compress really well because it's got a lot of the same zeros in it, and that makes a smaller file. I think our state files are about 12 megs in size. So that's really what you're downloading in order to run this thing. Okay, so that's Super Browser. It's basically, you can look at the v86 documentation to see how how we send files into the emulator back and forth and that kind of thing. The other piece of this puzzle is this WebSock proxy. And there's an existing WebSock proxy that we forked. And then all I've done there is a couple of things, is added the Nginx process that allows us to tunnel into the browser. And that's just kind of done in and if you know Nginx, this should look pretty familiar to you. But the trick here was we're picking up the traffic on port 443 because the browser, again, requires a SSL. It requires encrypted traffic. And so the traffic comes in on port 443, and then we take it and we proxy pass it to our, what's the process called? Switch relay, which was written in Python, and it does the relaying back and forth. But up here, this is where we're taking the port 10.5.6. Here's the 6 part, and then this is the 1 to 254, and we're taking it regardless of what comes in. We've opened up all the 6,000 ports, and this is where it gets passed and translated onto port 5432 on the local port. That took a ton of trial and error and trying a whole bunch of different things. So a couple of things I wanted to mention is, number one, why would you want to put Postgres, a server, in the browser? And our posts on Hacker News, are filled with people asking that question. Isn't it much more efficient to do this? That's not the point. The point, number one, is to open up a new door, do something that hasn't been done. And then my goal here is to, number one, to make Postgres not scary. It's kind of scary, like when you're first starting out with databases. You've got to go, first of all, you've got to find one running on a server, which might be difficult. You might not have access to a server. And if you do, you might be thinking, what if I screw up and I drop the production database? Databases can be scary. This is not scary because it's just it's your own copy in the browser. So if you mess up, you do something, you just hit the little refresh button, or whoops, just hit your little refresh button, restart, or just hit quick boot, and you're done. If you're, messing around and you say, okay, I want to try, 3 or 4 different branches of this, you can save state files and restore from one or the other. If you need help with something, you can, grab a file, send it to your friend and have them look at it, have them send it back. Lots of options there. The goal for this eventually is to have all of Supabase running in the browser so that you can spin up all of Supabase and do development work in the browser. The first step there for me, I believe, is to put all of the middleware, the Supabase middleware, probably at the proxy, since you have to go out to the proxy to get to the internet anyway. Your JavaScript clients, probably they're going to have to talk to the proxy anyway, so we can run that stuff in the proxy and have the proxy talk to the databases in the individual browser. But that would still give you your own and complete own environment for running Supabase. So that's what we're working towards. Is it possible? Yeah. How soon will it be done? I don't know. We're working on it. We also have to load a bunch of extensions in here, and that's been pretty difficult so far, but we're getting to it. It'll work. The main thing that I can say about this project, it was a lot of fun. Hacking is a lot of fun, but the reason I was able to do it, I'm not a genius. My code is good. It's probably not the best code you've ever seen. I've seen people that code much better, but what I'm able to do is I'm super persistent and patient. If you're going to work on a project like this, or pretty much any project, the key is be patient. I spent probably 2 weeks of working on other things when I couldn't get the networking to work at all. It just wasn't working. I tried 100 things before I got it to work, and I'm really stubborn. I wanted it to work. I was not going to give up until I got it to work. So I kept trying till I got it to work a little bit, and then I kept trying. So just, stick with it as long as you know that the thing is possible. Don't work on a perpetual motion machine that defies the laws of physics, because that's just not going to work. But I knew that it was possible. I just had to figure out how to do it. And so it was a blast to get working. And so this is where it is. WASM is also a really cool topic right now. People are really into WASM because they're moving things into the browser as much as they can, and it opens up a lot of doors. Like I said before, I've always been a huge proponent of moving as much stuff into the browser as you can, because that makes things infinitely scalable. If you can put, a Postgres database in everybody's machine, that's processing power exponentially greater than all the servers. And it doesn't, it doesn't mean that, Supabase has to have this giant server. People can actually use it, feel it, and test it, get a dev machine running, and then move stuff up to production when they need to host it. So it's really nice. I really love using the power of the browser to do stuff like this. So the big reasons are, make it easily approachable to get into Postgres, and 2, let people develop locally before they run. And I'm also a huge fan of SQL. I want to get SQL onto as many desktops as possible. People are scared of it, and they shouldn't be, because it's a great language. You could do so much with SQL. Try it. You'll love it.
It's a good point. Actually, you can probably run this on a Chromebook, right? Or say
yes,
iPad, what have you, tablet, kind of any sort of. Oh, that's actually
I run it on my TV. I have it running on my Android TV. I've got a Fire Stick, and I had it running on the Fire Stick, and like I said, on my iPhone. So originally I was going to call it Postgres Anywhere, but WASM's the big or Postgres Everywhere.
Everywhere. That's great. And then actually, but so currently, say you don't have any network at all, or you have, say, very slow network, can you connect to it kind of locally via localhost? So if you're sort of doing locally, because right now I think it goes through the proxy, right? If you were to
correct. Yeah, there's no way, if you don't have internet access, you can probably run it if it's cached in your browser. So you can bring up Postgres and you can do things locally, but you can't talk from your machine to your copy of Postgres, because it has to go through the proxy. And the reason is, well, that's not technically true. You could run a copy of the proxy on your local machine. And eventually what we'd love to do is run the proxy, in a browser tab or within the same context. But at this point, the limitations are there because the browser's blocking all that stuff.
Gotcha.
So yeah, now there is something you can do that's kind of interesting. Early on in my networking, playing around, I found out that you can use this technology called ARP, A-R-P. I forget what it stands for, but you could, and this only works in Chrome. It didn't work in other browsers, but you can open up multiple tabs and load up the virtual operating system, the Linux operating system, load up ARP, and it would give you a private address for each browser tab. So you could run a cluster of Postgres machines within the context of your browser. So one tab is one address, another tab is another address, and they could actually talk to one another only within the browser. Now, if you opened up an incognito browser, those could not talk to the one in your main system, but you could. And again, what's the purpose of that? I might do that one day just to try out clustering and to try out inter processes between a bunch of different Postgres machines. But that didn't get me out to the internet. That could only get me from machine to machine. So one day we'll figure out the networking, get even even better. But the next stop is probably getting the rest of Supabase in here.
Nice.
Can you share the links to the GitHub repos
Yes.
in the comments here? Because I'd love for people to take a look at the code, bang around on it, make pull requests, ask questions. What I love is when people say, "Could you do this with it?" We had somebody internally ask a great question. Could you link to an external file that somebody saves? So let's say Thor's working on a database and he saves it and puts it on a web server. Could you have it, point to that and bring that in directly? And that's something that we'll add. It's a really easy thing for us to add, and that gives us the ability to say it's great for training, or saying, okay, here's a sample stocked database ready to go. Click here, and it loads it into the browser, and you can start banging on it. Really cool. I hadn't thought of that, but it's easy to do.
Hey, Mark, since it's Hacktoberfest, are there any issues in the repository tagged with Hacktoberfest?
For WASM, for Postgres WASM,
Yeah.
I could create some issues. Right now, I need help with compiling the Postgres extensions for this. That would be number one. A bunch of extensions are included, but we have a bunch of custom extensions in Supabase that we'd like to get in there. So yeah, I'll write that up. Absolutely.
Cool.
Sweet. Any other questions? If I don't think we have any. Oh, we have a question in the chat, but that's more, can someone else be patient for me? Well, I don't think that's possible, but yeah, that's pretty nice.
Patience and stubbornness goes together really well. If you're stubborn, that's half of the way. If you're stubborn and you really, really want something, the other thing that goes along with patience is you really have to love what you're doing, because you're not going to be patient if you're working on something you don't care about. But Julian and I, and the other guys at Snaplet who are working on this just thought it was so much fun. We were having so much fun with it. We will do whatever we can to make it work, and so just don't give up.
It's amazing. Anyone else? Any questions for Mark?
It's not a question, but one thing I was considering was for like a technical, review in an interview, you could probably use this to see their SQL skills, try to fix the database. It'd be a
Absolutely
pretty good,
Yeah, I definitely think there's uses for this, and I mean, obviously, if you can run it in the browser, it just makes it accessible to more folks, right? Like, we very much take it for granted to have like our MacBooks and our internet and all of that, right? And it's just, there's a large part of the world that maybe is only on mobile, or that doesn't have a MacBook, say, or full machine. So yeah, bringing Postgres everywhere. I like it, Mark.
This will work on an iPad too. Works great on an iPad, even better than an iPhone for sure.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. And yeah, if you're familiar with the kernel and how to save memory and take things out, and like a Hacktoberfest t-shirt, I don't know if they're still doing t-shirts. It's actually a good question. Need to look into that.
I'll give you a t-shirt if you can clean up my kernel. I'll send you. I've got t-shirts. I'll get you a hat, whatever you want. Oh, Snaplet. Yeah. The Snaplet guys sent me one of their t-shirts because they really loved the collaboration. And they've got this cat on the front of the t-shirt, and the cat's butt is right on the front. And my wife saw it, and she said, "You can't wear that in public." I said, "Challenge accepted." I'll wear it to church next week. How's that?
Yeah, the Snaplet folks have some good visuals. I think I saw in the repository as well. They have like this guy with the Supabase cap and the Supabase mouse, and then the Snaplet cache. It's amazing.
They're very fun guys. They're really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet. Yeah, Mark. Yeah.
I just had one more question, Mark. I don't maybe you mentioned it, but I didn't hear it. So like right now, at what size is this whole suite in the browser? So if I was to visit the WASM.Supabase, what size, what file size am I downloading? How much data?
Yeah. The number that people have been saying is 30 megs. If you actually open up the network browser and you look in the console, it's 30 megs. But technically, you're downloading a 12 megs snapshot file. But that once you do that, it's got to load the kernel, and the kernel's probably, if you add those together, it's about 30 megs of stuff. And it caches it, so it's a one-time thing. So like you saw when I hit refresh, it comes up in 3 to 5 seconds. That being said, that's not the entire operating system, because the pieces are being lazy loaded. So the first time, let's say you run nano to edit a file inside the VM, and nano's a bad example because it's a tiny file, but it's not in the VM yet because it hasn't been loaded. So it's going to load over the internet, cache on your browser, and the next time it's going to be faster. So it depends on what pieces of the operating system you're running. But typically, for most people, it's about 30 megs total, I believe. And we'd love to get that down to, maybe 5 or 10, which I think is doable.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, Mark, if you want, you're very welcome to stick around. But of course, you're also welcome to drop off and go back to hacking on your Postgres in the browser. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us and sharing. And yeah, if you have any questions for Mark, I think people can find you on Twitter. I think I have you on Twitter. So I'll
Burgraph
post
2.
them.
Or as
Burgraph 2.
Burgraph 2.
Who's the first Burgraph?
I don't know if there was another one. Usually, most of my handles are just Burgraph, but it might have been a thing where I screwed up the first one, and so Burgraph 2 is the one that stuck.
Sounds good. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much. And yeah, I mean, sure, we'll hear more from you in the future. This is great. Once we got all of Supabase running in the browser, we'll get you back on. Awesome. Cool. Then yeah, let's switch over to Isaiah. And I think first of all, would love to sort of hear the story how you even found Supabase or heard about Supabase.
Okay, yeah. It feels like such a long time ago, but really it's only I actually started contributing to Supabase, I think on this week or next week. So it's been like a full year. So I can't remember how. I think I watched a Fireship video on Supabase, and I was like, huh, that's pretty cool. Looked at some of the issues, and I was like, great. And yeah, so pretty much I saw a typo in the source code, and I was like, okay, I'll fix that real quick. And after a while, I probably did maybe like 20 commits of just typos, and after that, it's just started like rolling and just started gradually being more meaningful. I mean, every PR is a meaningful, contribution, but stuff more of like bug fixes, and those bug fixes turned into an internship and where I am now.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So maybe to give folks a bit of background, sort of what's your background? How did you get into coding, in the first place?
So like every 10-year-old, well, maybe not, but I was playing some GTA, and it's been a while since GTA 5 came out, and I was like, I'll build GTA 6 in Unity and just copy every single YouTube tutorial that I can find. And so I pretty much did that. It was not coding. I was just copying, pasting, and then I pretty much gave up as you expect a 10-year-old trying to build GTA. Then I think maybe a year later, not a year later, I was in sixth grade, or yeah, sixth grade. The numbers are like mixed up, but in sixth grade, me and my friend, we um, challenged each other just to like code, and we really fell in love with it. We were like building websites and just trying to like optimize each other's code, and that's pretty much how it started. After that, I just took off with it.
Isaiah,
Back
you're
in like
killing me.
sixth grade.
When I was 10, we had a video game at our house. It was Pong. Remember Pong?
Yeah.
Bink,
Yeah.
bink, bink. You were
Did
playing
you
Grand
try
Theft
to
Auto.
port that to the browser?
So that's been done.
That's been done. Yeah, that's true. No, that's amazing. That's probably the better version of peer pressure that I've heard of. I think my friends were pressuring me into doing other things, not
Yeah.
coding. But that's nice. That's great. And then so mainly you kind of taught yourself with sort of the resources that are out there on the web. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I started watching YouTube tutorials, reading the documentation, Stack Overflow, stuff like that. It was less copying and pasting. I actually tried to learn, but started off with Python, and then I moved over to JavaScript. I still am currently like learning Go and Rust, but yeah, pretty much just using the resources, whatever I could find on the internet for free.
Oh, that's amazing.
So Isaiah,
Yeah,
if somebody were to ask you, how do I get started? I want to learn to program. And they came to you, where would you tell them to start? Or would you tell them, did you do it right? Or if you had to do it over and do it better, what would you say?
Oh, if I were to start coding over again or programming over again, I would definitely just YouTube tutorials. Just like it's they teach you how to like, especially in like the coding train. I can't remember, but there's good YouTube tutorials that would tell you how to like, I don't know how to put it into words, but they will show you how to code. They will tell you why you're doing it instead of just saying print hello world and that's it. So I would definitely try to find the best resources that I could off of YouTube, and then after a while, I don't know. I just YouTube.
Do you have any specific courses you could recommend or YouTube things that were super helpful to you?
I'll try. Yeah, you could look up, if you want to learn a specific language, look up I don't know, maybe if I can find it on YouTube, but if you like look up Python for beginners on YouTube, the first thing that'll come up is, learn Python full course, and it's a 4-hour video. Yes, it's a little long, but it's by the Free Code Camp. And I think that's the video I watched. And if you watch those and, put them into parts and just dive into it, they'll give you like, they'll teach you how to do it, and then they'll give you exercises, and definitely build on top of those exercises. Like try to like tweak it to make the code you're on. That's what I would do.
You said you
yeah,
sorry. I was gonna say you said you started off with Python and then moved over to JavaScript. What was the transition like, or what was the experience like transitioning from Python, which from what I remember is based on indentation, to now JavaScript, where it doesn't really care about whether you indent your code or not?
I honestly can't remember, but it was I remember my friend told me this. Once you learn how to learn like the pseudocode, like the logic of programming, it's kind of easy to switch over to other programming languages. So I'm assuming it probably took me a little while to figure out the syntax, maybe about a month or two, 3 months. But I would say it was a pretty um, straightforward process, but like, definitely, get basic, errors like I can't think of any right now, but just the basic errors of like the syntax of like compared to JavaScript and Python. Like when I first came to JavaScript, you either had the option of a semicolon or not, and I was just like, what? So I never heard of those in Python.
Cool.
And then, yeah, maybe let's dive into. I don't know. I say if you want to share your screen and maybe sort of show us kind of the Supabase repository and, if you were to sort of recommend someone how they can get involved or get contributing, any tips sort of maybe where they can make a start. I mean, one tip, there is some Hacktoberfest issues that you can look for. But yeah, maybe you just want to take us through kind of maybe your workflow and anything like that.
Yeah, I can do that. Am I sharing the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, pretty much you come over to the Supabase GitHub repo, and first thing I always look at is to find the contributing documentation, which is right here. See to see how to contribute, and I usually read this for if a repo has this, I'll read this, and it'll pretty much show you how to contribute to the repository and what you need. So you need Git, Node, and npm. And after that, I come over to the issues, and I usually filter by good first issue if I'm new to the repository. And as you can see, we have a couple here. I'll just click on this one. So our Twitter documentation, it seems to be outdated, and I was thinking, that's a pretty easy one to start off with. And I'll check to see if anyone has started on it, or if anyone has, created a pull request, or they've been assigned to it. And if they have, then, I'll try to find another one. Or if it's been a while, maybe about a month, I'll ask if they're still working on it. That's usually first thing I do. After that, after finding the issue that I want to work on, I come over, clone, git clone the repo. This isn't the Supabase repo, but I'll cd into where it's at. After cloning, I'll come back to this documentation. And I'll just, do the development setup from here on Supabase. So I'll need to have these installed, fork the repository, which I already have right here. Then I want to find which directory, since this is a mono repo, I'll have to find which directory that I need to be working in. And since I'll be doing the Twitter one, I'll see go into the docs. So I'll cd into that. Spell that right?
Yeah,
Now that I'm
I
in
don't know if
here-
you can, but if you can zoom in a little bit, it might be a bit small if folks are watching it
Is that
on
better?
a phone or something. Yeah, that's great.
All right, and then install your install the packages, and then just read the rest of the documentation. It really helps. Yeah. So then pretty much once you have your once you have your code that you want that you already have fixed, which I will have to actually. I actually have some code that I need to upload. Is there like any questions while I do this?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Was the Supabase project your first open source project you've contributed to, I guess? Or was there any Python projects that you tried to contribute to, since you learned a bit of Python as well?
I didn't create a GitHub account until 2020, which was when I switched over to JavaScript fully. And so I wasn't doing any Python development at that time. And then for Supabase, I don't think it's my first repo. I think I contributed to like a very small repository, and it was like print hello world in the language of cow. So it was like something super random. And that, I guess that is my first open source contribute. But I consider Supabase as my like official, as my official start to the open source journey. And then, so once you have your code changes, so like right here.
Is that GitHub desktop?
Yeah, I use GitHub Desktop. I mean, you can use this CLI, but I just use GitHub Desktop.
Oh.
Yeah.
And your browser, not your browser, your editor of choice? Maybe that's a good question.
Oh, yes. My editor choice is Vim or NeoVim.
Oh.
Yeah. Switched
Look at
over a
that.
little bit ago. Yep.
That's cool. Oh, that almost looks like a game. That's fun.
Yeah. And then you'll want to create a branch, and then you want to name it something that is what you're doing. So right now we're fixing the blog image. And you're going to create your branch. And then you're going to want to write a commit message. Same thing. Usually when you create a commit message, it doesn't have to, but you want to start off with something like fix or chore or feature to let them know what that does, what this commit does. So this one is fix blog image. And then you're going, then you commit, publish branch, taking a while. And then you're going to create your pull request. One great thing about the Supabase repo, and my favorite thing about Supabase, is how easy it is to just create a pull request, because most repositories you kind of have to write it like with a blank. So you pretty much start off with this. But Supabase makes it really easy by giving you what you need what to say to help the maintainer see what this does before they look at the code. So what kind of change does this PR do? Fix blog image, current behavior, I believe there, and then there is dots at the bottom of the image, and then there. And this helps out the maintainer a lot to see what changes that you have, and make sure that everything looks, correct. And then you'll submit your pull request, and a maintainer will try to get to it as quick as possible. Make sure all the actions run correctly. And that's pretty much it. You just pretty much wait until the maintainer approves it. If they have any requests, of course, you can chat about that, about the requests that change, the code changes and stuff. But that's pretty much it.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you change an image, I guess it makes sense. The lines of code edited at 0 and the lines of code
Yes,
deleted at
and
0. It's just
I don't know
binary
if-
files, I guess. So.
I don't know if you can see or not, but that's like, it's something very subtle, but
Yeah,
there's no more dotted lines.
nice.
Is there anything that I kind of like went over kind of quickly or just didn't really make too much sense, or any questions?
I was just trying to see if there are questions in the. No, I think there's just not really questions, but more compliments. I actually wonder which Chris is that? Do we know this Chris? I feel obsolete. Sorry, Chris.
Chris, you
You
should
got
feel like
started
me.
moving
When
in.
you're my age, you're obsolete.
There's
Oh my
actually a
gosh.
question there, Thor, by Isaiah. No, sorry, by Jonathan, asking
Oh
Isaiah
yes.
published his. Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
So the
so
question
they're
is,
asking, have you published your
NeoVim.
NeoVim setup config somewhere?
Yeah, I have. It's github.com/Isaiah-Hamilton/dot files. So
Dot
just
files.
look me up on GitHub, and it should be in my pinned repositories. I try to keep it neat, but I don't know how neat it is.
We should, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I can,
good. So just look up Isaiah on GitHub. That's the beauty of GitHub. I think I also have my dot files somewhere flying around, but I probably haven't updated them in ages.
I have a question for Isaiah. Have you taken any computer-related classes in school?
Yes, I actually am taking one now. It's web design, and the funny thing is I didn't have the requirements to take, the actual computer science class or AP classes. And the real funny part is that I do my friend's AP computer science homework.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the world of academia is not always how to put it. Yeah, there's a lot of rules in academia, which sometimes is a bit annoying. But yeah, no, I think as you mentioned, there's a lot of good materials out there, and yeah, just go on the YouTubes. Oh yeah, there it is. Let me share the dot files. 1 second. The comments.
I see one comment that says, it says, how did you, can you please go over how you learned to type so amazingly? Again, I just started typing when I was like 10, and I used to type with the home row in elementary school. Then I figured out that was kind of inefficient. So I just look up monkey type. I spent so much time when I'm bored in class, just monkey type.
I like this one. Tyler's like, Supabase people don't know how to spell. Well, yeah, no, that's fair enough. I actually, do we have a
Spelling's for English
style?
majors.
Yes. Do we have a style guide somewhere? Because I think we're actually doing American English instead of the proper Queen's English. I wasn't asked about this. I didn't make this decision. So,
It
yeah.
drives me nuts when you guys say beta. We have a
Oh.
beta, and we're in America. We're like the what? What's a beta? we say beta, and like John was saying quiche. It's in the quiche. I'm like, oh, I love quiche. We had quiche for dinner yesterday.
That's the beauty of a global remote world, isn't it? Yeah, that's fabulous.
Random question for Isaiah, actually, based on his typing skills. Do you play Fortnite by any chance?
Oh no. No.
The way how you're smashing the keyboard is how Fortnite is when you're building, like smash the keyboard and just build stuff. So I thought you must play Fortnite.
I play. I don't play video games anymore, but I used to play a lot of CS:GO, City Skylines.
Andrew, he doesn't have time for video games anymore because
No.
the issues just
but
keep piling up.
How good are you at Pong? That's my question.
I mean, pretty good. I can also, yeah.
Well, I'm excited to. Hopefully, I think we have a team offsite. So we're Supabase is globally remote, distributed. Andrew is actually in a time zone right now that should not be awake. I'm here in Singapore. Unfortunately, the sun hasn't come up. It's kind of rainy season at the moment, so it's been very wet lately, and unfortunately, which I like to cycle to the WeWork. So we're all global remote. A lot of folks work from home, but then also we have this sort of all access WeWork membership, and so if you prefer to have like. I really like cycling for 15 minutes to kind of around the Marina Bay to get to the WeWork, and then every once in a while, I meet some other folks that happen to be in Singapore in the WeWork, and I get coffee, which is great as well. So that's if you're kind of in a city where there's a WeWork, you can do that. But then, yeah, we get the company together. Every year. Well, I mean, we've only done it once now because the company was founded during COVID, and so we've come together in was it February? When was it? March? Was it March?
March.
I think it was March earlier this year, in Germany of all places, which happens to be my my birthplace, and so I was kind of at that time I was actually the only German at Supabase. We now have a second German, which I don't know how I feel about it. Yes, we'll have to see. It's probably when you're an only child and then you get a sibling, it's kind of you need to figure out: do you love them? Do you hate them? No, just joking. But yeah, so it's great, just kind of organizing things, and I think one thing we went to this bowling alley. Which is like this historic. It wasn't really bowling. So in Germany, it's called Kegeln, and it's like smaller balls, and it was this historic place, like in the basement of this historic pub, and you had like all the Supabase folks just coming in, like smashing it to bits, basically. But yeah, so I'm excited to hopefully next March to actually get to see. Meet Isaiah in person. So if you haven't gotten your passport yet, make sure you get one.
Actually, I just got it a couple months ago, but I'm sad to say this. I don't think it'll happen because unless you guys planned it around my school schedule, it's because this offsite, I think it's like in California. It's literally the week before I go on break, so I'll miss it. And I'll be doing finals. So
when's your break?
I think starts on the 12th. I'm not sure though. I have to double check, but I think it's the 12th.
I think our offsite is the 11th. So it's the week of the 11th. Yeah. So you might be able to make it.
Yeah.
Wait, which one are we talking about now? In March? Or is there
Yeah,
another one?
Yeah, it's
We're
March.
talking March, right?
Your break for
You have
school
a break
should be
in
March.
March? Oh wow, that okay.
Yeah, spring
So
break.
I mean, would be good. Let's
spring break.
figure this out. We have a couple months. But yeah, there's some folks that I've actually never met in person. And funnily enough, I've never met John in person, and he's just over there down under, you know. And so yeah, well, that's the beauty and the pain of a globally remote company.
I would
Yeah.
like to say one thing. The absolute speed of Danny. He just approved my pull request, and it's only been not even 10 minutes.
Yes,
We're-
Danny. I'd like
Yeah.
to pat myself on the shoulder because I told him to join. I was like, Danny, come. So I used to work with Danny in at Stripe, and yeah, he's great. I mean, yeah, no, I mean, a lot of great people at Stripe, of course, as well. But yeah, Danny is yeah, no, very very happy. I mean, that's a great thing about Supabase as well. It's just a lot of great people just randomly distributed around the world, building random open source things. So yeah, I think that's yeah, that was a very happy hour, and I think at this point, yeah, that's probably a happy note to leave it on. So as mentioned, Hacktoberfest. You can look in the various repos for Supabase. We've tagged some issues with Hacktoberfest, not Oktoberfest. That's a different thing. But yeah, so you know, keep hacking. If you find an issue, so Isaiah as well tags issues at good first issues. So you can look for those as well. And then if you want to have them count as Hacktoberfest contributions, you know, just mention in the comment and we can add the Hacktoberfest tag as well. But yes, we very much appreciate y'all contributing. And yeah, I mean, you know, just do what Isaiah does. Watch some YouTube videos and then contribute to Supabase. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll yeah, we might play around with the time zones, with the timing a little bit this month to maybe see, you know, so it's not too crazy always for everyone. And I think right now we're kind of leaving sort of Europe and Africa kind of out of the loop a bit. So maybe we can switch it up a bit and do that. Anyway, just follow us on Twitter and we'll let you know there. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Anyone, any last things they want to advertise? Any shameless plugs or any?
Yeah, go follow me on Twitter, Isaiah7Hamilton. Also on GitHub, you can look up my terrible repos. Again, Isaiah-Hamilton. And then one comment says,
why the 7?
"Oh, I was 7 when I created my Gmail, and I just used that."
Gosh darn it. Unbelievable. 7?
Yeah, I wanted to play Minecraft.
Yeah. Okay, and I think on that, if you're out there, if you're watching and you're 7, make sure you create your Gmail address if you haven't already.
We got the Gmail in my nursing home now. That's a new thing.
My kids will not be seeing this stream. My youngest, who's 7,
Man.
if he should see this, he'll tell me that he needs an email right now, and he's not getting one.
All right, that's good. Hopefully they are asleep, and hopefully you'll be soon as well. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good rest of the week and weekend. See you all next week. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.